Welcome to Algebra 2, Semester 2, Unit 7a. This is section 8.4. And it's page 3 of the notes. Okay, asking you to simplify, and these are radical expressions. So the very first thing that you want to do in these, the process would be, you can't just cancel terms that are being added. You have to cancel factors top to bottom. If you think back to fractions when you reduced them, you might have, let's say you have 15 over 25. You didn't just cancel those two 5s and say that that's 1/2. Instead, you had to say what your factors were. 3 times 5 is 15, and 5 times 5 is 25, so each of those factors there could cancel, 1 each. So, going up to these polynomials now, we have to factor them to see what can cancel. That's why we've been working on factoring. So x squared minus 2x minus 15, it's a 1 out front, so we know that we can take the shortcut. And we can put x as our leading term. Now what two numbers will multiply to be negative 15? That tells us it's a negative and a positive. So what two numbers multiply to be 15 and subtract to be 2? That would be 5 and 3. 5 is farthest from 0, so it will carry the sign of that middle number, so that's 5, and that's 3. Now on the bottom, this is a difference of 2 squares. So we have x plus 3, and we have x minus 3. Now in order to cancel, the entire binomial has to be identical, and it needs to be on the opposite side of the fraction line. So it goes in there once, it goes in there once, and our final answer is x minus 5 over x minus 3. Okay? Pause the video and try doing this one on your own. When you turn it back on, I'll have the answer for you. I see that that's a difference of 2 squares. That's why I factor it this way. Those cancel. When I cancel them, I'm actually saying x plus 4 goes in there once, goes in there once. So that leaves me with a 1 on top of x minus 4. Good job, I hope you got it right. This is page 4. Now we're going to look at multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Well, let me just review real quickly. When you used to multiply, let's say 1/2 times 3/5, you would just multiply straight 3 over 10. But if I were to ask you how many 3/5 go into a half, you would be dividing. And when you divide, you skipped the first term, flip the second term, and then you multiplied them. So that's the process on fractions, just to remind you. So the first thing that I do here, I look, it's a divide. So in doing this division, the very first thing, just like the previous problems, I'm going to factor first. So I'm going to look at this, 4x minus 8, and I'm going to write it in factored form. I'd pull a 4 out to the front, then I'd have x minus 2. On the bottom, x plus 2 cannot be factored any further. That's in lowest terms. I do put it in parentheses to remind myself that I can't cancel anything else except just that entire term. Now I flip the second fraction. So it would be an x squared minus 4 on top and x minus 2 on the bottom. Now this x minus 2 can't be broken down any further, so I put parentheses around it. This x squared minus 4 is a difference of 2 squares, so I'm just going to put a line through it and write it in factored form, x minus 2 and x plus 2. Now I can see where I can reduce. X minus 2 goes in here and in there, so I can reduce that way. X plus 2 is here and up there, so I can reduce that way. That leaves only a 1 on the bottom. We don't have to write fractions with 1s on the bottom, so we can just show what's left up on top. Okay, on the next one, we're not multiplying, so we won't need to flip them. I just go ahead and I factor out. On the first one, 3x would factor out of those two terms. So I write 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x goes into 3x one time. Now sometimes I see students do it this way, and it may be easier for you to see it, is they factor right above it. And then they just draw a single line through to show that's what that one is. Okay, so if that one seems easier, then we can do it that way. 5 would go into each of these, so I'd pull out that 5 as a GCF. Then we'd have x squared plus 4x plus 4. And when I look at that, I see, oh, this is a perfect trinomial square, because 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 plus 2 is 4. So I put x plus 2, but I do not just square it, because I want to be able to cancel those. And I need to remember that there were 2 of them down here. Now we come up to this, x squared minus x. I can factor an x out of there. That would leave x minus 1. And up here on top, since I have a 1 in the leading coefficient, I can shortcut. Put an x. What multiplies to be positive 2 and adds to be negative 3? If it multiplies to be positive, they have to be the same sign. So we'll take the sign of the middle number. And the only factors for 2 is 2 and 1. And those happen to add to be negative 3. So now I've got my factors written in here. I'll erase this one out here so it doesn't confuse us. You can put a line through these so that we're only looking at our factors top to bottom. And I would suggest rewriting at that point. So we have 3x, x plus 1, times x minus 1, times x minus 2. And that's all up on the top. On the bottom we have 5. I'm going to go ahead and pull this x out to the front just so we don't lose him. Then we have x plus 2, x plus 2, and x minus 1. Looking top to bottom for similar factors, I see x minus 1 here and here. And I do not see, oh, I see an x here and here. I am not seeing any other factors in this. Okay, so for your answer, keep the 3 out there, keep the factored form, because it may be that as you write it out into the answer, you'll see that, oh yeah, there's one more that I can cancel. So plus 2. So that would be our final answer. Be comfortable leaving factors in your final answer if that's what it ends up being. Okay? That way you double check it before you circle it as your final answer. Go ahead and pause the video and work on these last 2. I will work on them so that after you do them, you can turn it on and see how you did and how you did compared to me. Okay, so this first one I would factor out of 4x. Because it's a division, I know I'm going to flip this second one. So I'll go ahead and I'll write the factored forms out here. 4x times x minus 1 over, this would be x minus 1 x plus 3. Now I'm going to flip the second fraction. So it would be x squared minus 6x minus 7 on top. My factors, I can go straight to the shortcut. They need to multiply to be negative 7, so that'll be a negative and a positive. They will subtract 7 and 1 equals 6, 7 being further from 0, so it takes the sign of the negative 6. Now the bottom one will be x plus 1. So now I can cancel or I can reduce my like terms top to bottom, so x plus 1 cancels. X minus 1 and x minus 1 cancels. My final answer, up on top I have 4x right there, and I have x minus 7 right there. On the bottom I have x plus 3. Okay. In the next problem, again we're dividing. So I'll go ahead and write my factors out here. This is a difference of two squares. So it's m minus 3 and m plus 3. I'm going to bring this one up to the top because it's a division. So I'm going to go ahead and factor out 6 times m plus 4. That would be my top factors. Now down here on the bottom, I could factor out a 3m. That would leave m plus 3. And this one comes to the bottom. 7m would factor out of those. And I would have 3m. Oh, I'm sorry, not 3m. I would just have 3 minus m. Okay? So identical factors we can cancel. M plus 3, m plus 3. 6 and 3 would go in there 2 times. We've got an m here and an m here, but they can't cancel because they're not top to bottom. Because remember, we're reducing them, not necessarily canceling. That looks like it. So let's write our answer and see if anything looks peculiar. Bring our 2 out to the front. We have m minus 3 and m plus 4. You know commutative property, so you know that you can take factors and put them in different orders and it doesn't change the value. 2 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 2 in regards to the product. Now on the underneath side we have an m and we have 7m, so that would make 7m squared. We have a 3 minus m. Now, if you looked at that and said, well, this is kind of peculiar with an m minus 3, I would encourage you to take this one and put it in the same order of that as that one. It's a positive 3 and a negative m. And ask yourself, could you factor a negative 1 out of there? If you factored out a negative 1, now it would become m minus 3, and you could cancel. And it is expected that you would cancel. So, now on top we have 2 times m plus 4 over negative 1 times 7m squared. So, you can bring the negative out front, 7m squared. Okay? That's the end of this section. Thank you very much.